This is a Netflix original series called Lock and Key. It consists of 10 episodes, which are roughly 45 minutes or so in length. A couple of them are a little bit longer, and a couple of them are a little bit shorter, but 45 is the general average for this series. They're all separate episodes, but they do definitely work together as one cohesive narrative and one story arc, so you do need to watch all the episodes in a row to understand what's going on. It follows these three kids, largely follows these three kids. There are other characters involved as well. But these three kids, they're dealing with issues. There was a problem with their father, an accident, a very tragic story, and that's kind of how they're marked as they're coming into this new town where their family home, the Locke house, is basically, what their shelter is now. It's where they're staying. And there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding this place, too. Not a lot of details are presented to the family, and they've been away from this place for a long time. So they're brought back here, and you would think that this might be more geared towards the younger audience, just because at the start a lot of it follows the youngest child, which is considerably young. And you're like, okay, it's maybe more of a younger youth style show, but it really isn't. It may seem like that initially, but this is more for it's weird. It's like tonally, at times, it seems like it's one of those magical, happy, easygoing shows. But then it gets really dark, very adult in nature. So maybe teenagers and older, just because it is quite graphic. There's a death where someone is just casually thrown underneath a metro subway system, something or other like that. And you might like, whoa, spoiler, but it's a throwaway character thing that sets something up in the background. You won't even see it coming when it does happen. And it has nothing to do really with the plot. I'm just trying to set up, the stakes in regards to how sudden and violent and full of death that this show can be at any given moment, just so you get an idea of the context in regards to who this show is specifically for when it comes to the viewership. So anyways, then we've got the two older kids, girl, guy. The guy is doing sports. He's playing hockey on the team. He's got some aggression issues due to the problem with his father in the past. And then the gal, she's also got issues too, and she's trying to connect with people and kind of slides into this weird group of kids that are movie fans. They're making their own movie, and that's part of her kind of plot line. So they all doing their own separate stories, but they intertwine multiple times throughout the episodes. And it does have more of an ensemble feeling. It's not individual kind of storylines. Everyone is connected. They all have points. And it's about these keys. So there's these keys, they hear whispers, and it kind of draws them towards these keys. And they're noticing that some of the adults don't really have a connection to the keys. They don't understand them. They don't remember what's happening with the keys. But then there's a deeper plot that has to do with kind of going over that segment of the series as it progresses, and you'll kind of understand that. So anyways, the kids are doing their thing. They're discovering keys, they're learning about them, and every key is kind of special. One key lets you go into the mind of anyone that has the key into them. So the keys are kind of special. You actually have to put them into doors or into things. There's one that opens to anywhere. So anywhere there's another door, you can enter it and go into another place. And that could be anywhere in the world, anywhere you know of, and you can just unlock the door, go in. There's like a cool ghost one, and then there are a number of other keys that I won't talk about because they're more spoilerish. But there is a large collection of keys, so a lot of this is finding a key, discovering a key, and seeing what the key does, in sort of like a magical sense there. But then there's also this darkness. So the youngest kid is interacting with this well lady. So this lady at the bottom of the well is like an echo talking to him. And she is kind of the villain of this show, but there are some neat kind of twists and turns in regards to all of the characters as the plot kind of unravels and changes over the course of all of the episodes. So you have to kind of keep watching it, and it kind of reveals itself. And I think that aspect is really quite well done, just in regards to keeping things fresh and always being surprising, because you're like, whoa, did not see that coming. And I think that's kind of an important aspect, especially when you are getting into show lengths of 10 episodes these days, which most Netflix series are getting shorter and shorter, I've noticed. So anyways, they use their time effectively. There's a good sense of pacing. At the same time, I wish that some of the storylines were a little bit more developed. They seem to almost jump along at times and get to certain points without fully developing some of the storylines. So they're very playful with the keys, and sometimes the playfulness with the keys is how they really discover what exactly you can do with these keys. And again, everything revolves around doors, locks, keys, and what you can do with them. And they get some wildly different abilities, and that's why I'm kind of curious moving forward, assuming we do get to see additional seasons, what exactly they will do. Maybe expanding the option of keys, maybe they'll find new ones, but it does seem like there's a set amount, at least that's been found, and I think that's neat. It definitely does set up some interesting storylines to move on from, and I think that's kind of cool. It's also very dark and mysterious because there are certain doors they come across, certain locations, certain memories that come out. And it's really quite hard to talk about certain elements of the show without spoiling things because you want this to be a fresh thing that you can jump into and watch without having anything ruined. So I did enjoy it. I thought some of the acting could have been a little bit better and some of the storyline could have been maybe fleshed out a bit more, or they could focus on certain characters or more on certain aspects of the keys. Generally, it was all right. Tonally, it was weird because it was kind of all over the place, at least in my opinion. It got like really violent, really dark, but at the same time, it was like too friendly magical. So that aspect was a little bit weird for me because I was trying to like nail down who exactly this show is particularly for. And I think it's kind of my age group, maybe a little bit younger and maybe older. I'm not too sure if adults would really get into it, but then they might like it, like older adults. I am an adult. Anyways, moving past that, the older audience, because, at the beginning it's kind of slow. It follows the kid around a lot. It doesn't focus on the older kids, which is where a lot of the sort of darker storylines are coming. And then on top of that, we also have their mother who's dealing with issues. She's kind of breaking down a little bit, having a ray of sunshine cup with some special drink inside of it. But she's also doing some detective work because there are adults in this too that she is interacting with and talking to and doing sort of like detective type work as she goes around trying to figure out things because she can't quite explain a lot of the elements surrounding certain events that do get revealed as you're watching. So you get to see how certain characters are set up and how things change and how the dynamic changes over the course of the episodes, because there's some things I can't talk about because I don't want to spoil it. And that's important for talking about what these characters are doing. And again, they're connecting, mixing, and interacting in multiple segments and points throughout the episodes. Sometimes they start an episode as a group and then they split off and then they come back together in the middle and then they go out and they come back in like a figure eight. Or sometimes they just kind of like completely go off in different directions, but they're family, so they should logically be working together, especially since they are primary key holders. So that's a special type of thing where they have an extra level of ownership over the keys in comparison to other people. Because you got to keep in mind that these keys are spread out. There was a whole backstory with the keys that kind of gets discovered, and it's that mystery of trying to figure out what happened with the previous key holders, with their family beforehand, the generations past, and how that kind of mixes into the future, and how those characters are going to be dealing with things as the narrative and the plot progress. And then it kind of all unfolds, and it leaves you with a little bit of a little bit of a tease or an understanding of where they might go if they do get to continue going forward. And just, it should definitely surprise you, and you'll be like, I didn't quite catch that. That's interesting. And I think that aspect is going to keep the show possibly more interesting. I like the idea of the keys. It's definitely different. I'm not familiar with any sort of other shows that use that kind of technology as like a supernatural thing, the keys being like a magic sense. Again, one where you go into the mind and you can do things in there. And they're not just keys that, have a simple task. They're keys that have multiple dimensions to them, have long-lasting effects that you get to see on other people in the world, in this small town. And they have effects on people in the now, and the kids kind of learn about the keys and what exactly they can do by sometimes not necessarily using the keys in the right way and causing problems for them and others around them. And that's a big part of it, especially when you decide to use the my key and change certain things because stuff gets out, stuff gets locked in, and that's a big part of the plot, is understanding each key per episode, and then they start piling keys on, and there's a lot of keys, needless to say. That's a big part of what this show is. But overall, quite enjoyed it. I give it a 7.2 out of 10. You can read my full review in the description below. And if you have any questions about the show, let me know. But generally, went smoothly, went well. There are some things that could have been a bit better. I had some issues with the plot, but for the most part, it was enjoyable. a fairly fairly easy binging experience. I had a good time with it. I would recommend checking it out because I think it is interesting and different. Just be careful who's watching it, because tonally it can be all over the place, and you'll be questioning who exactly this is for audience type wise, because you got to watch out for that, especially for the younger ones, because it seems like it might be targeted for them, but that's really not the case because it does get quite graphic.